Welcome to episode 64 of Terese Talk. I'm your host, Terese Main. By day, I co-host a morning radio show on a network in New York and Pennsylvania. By nights, I'm a podcaster. If you're a woman like me who loves Jesus and just wants to serve her family and community a little better, you're in the right place. If you would, take a moment right now to subscribe so you don't miss a single episode. It is the hardest times of life that we learn so much about God. It's not easy, but it's always fruitful. Grammy-winner Mandisa has been very open about her battle with the darkness. As she was grieving the death of a friend, she found herself in a fierce battle with depression. Time has given her perspective, and now she's written a book about coming back into the light. And, I'm sure this time of year is especially hard for you because, for one, football is over.
I had sung the national anthem at games in the past. I was just going and singing, and I would bring, my brother, who's a diehard football fan. I remember when I sang, the anthem for the San Francisco 49ers. And that one was televised. It was the only one that was televised. And I sang, and then I left. I flew back home because I was like, I don't like football. So now that I actually go to football games and I enjoy it, I just remember tailgating. And when I looked out, and I don't know, maybe it was just because it's how my mind is wired, but when I saw so many people coming together, I saw this one tailgating that had every race. It had men and women and children. And I was like, wow, the unity that I'm seeing out here with a football team, that's what I wish we were like in the body of Christ. It's just, everybody was rooting toward the same goal. And so there's something about coming together that I think I really love, that really touches me. But honestly, that's me trying to be deep about something. I just love the game. That's why I was rooting for the Rams, because I love the stories of players. I love that, Jason Whitworth, he got, to get his Super Bowl ring after getting Walter Payton Man of the Year, and that Aaron Donald, who is known as one of the best players of all time, he was just missing one thing, and that was the Super Bowl ring. I love the story of how they went all in to get Matthew Stafford. They traded away picks, and that this was their 1 year to do it. So I was rooting for the Rams, one, because I couldn't root for Cincinnati because they hurt me so much, but also just the stories of the people that were on that team I really love.
So basically we need to nix the church potluck and move to a church tailgating is what you're saying.
Absolutely. There's nothing like it.
What was the moment for you when you went from the person who left after singing the anthem to the person who right now just bleeds football from August to February?
Natalie Grant. And she was the first woman that I saw that was just all in. And I just started asking her questions about it. And then I started YouTubing the game, because I remember watching the Super Bowl where it was the Seahawks and the Patriots. And that was the first Super Bowl I had really watched fully. And I was like, I think I could be into this game. And bit by bit, I just started, doing football for dummies and watching YouTube videos and asking Natalie and some of my other friends all about football. And before I knew it, I was a crazy Titans fan, crazy Titans fan. I'm not just a fair weather fan. I'm all in.
I'm thinking of all the things that you could have conversations with Natalie Grant about. I would not have put football in the top 5, but there you are. I love that.
There you are. Have you seen her with football?
Yes. Oh, she's 1,000% in.
It was so fun. Let's do it.
All right. I'm holding in my hands Out of the Dark, my journey through the shadows to find God's story. And I have not been able to read it cover to cover because I just got it today. But I have been flipping through and I'm seeing this theme that you have shared so many times in so many different ways. And it's cool to see the whole thing together in one place. And I know your story's not over yet, but there is this trend of hills and valleys. And it's not unique to you, obviously. That's kind of the Christian thing. But what you've learned in the peaks, what you've learned in the valleys of darkness is really profound. And you did all of that while you were still out there worshiping the Lord, which I think is the hard part, because I think a lot of times we think, oh, I'm in a valley. I can't serve. I can't love. I can't give. I can't do anything for you, Lord. I'm in a valley right now. Everything stops. But I feel bad that I didn't always know when those were going on, when I would see you at things or see you performing and just think, oh, everything is great with her.
Well, I think that's so often what we do in Christendom. We put on the smile and I'm great and I'm wonderful. And the one thing I've always appreciated about you, Teresa, is that you'll be honest, you'll be real, like, well, yeah, I'm okay. And I think, once I started being honest and sharing not just the great things and not always plastering a smile on my face when I was suffering inside, I started to realize there's a certain place of healing that you can really only get to when you start getting real, when you stop pretending like everything is great, and when you actually bring these things out into the light. So it's still a journey. Like I'm so thankful that that subtitle talks about a journey, because I don't want anybody to think that I've arrived. Like, this is a struggle every day. And it's just, I think it's the thorn in my flesh and something I'll always have to depend on God for, to not sink into that dark place again, because I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy. It's not a place of hope. It's not a place of joy. And so learning to not just shut down when things aren't great, but to, keep putting one foot in front of the other. I think that's an important lesson that I'm still trying to learn, because I just want to shut down and hibernate.
If I could write a subtitle for this book, it would be The Story of Disa, Keisha, John, and Kaya.
I love it. Pretty much, yes. My dog Kaya does get a little shout out in there,
She gets a lot of
because
shout out.
she's my pandemic puppy. Honestly, the last 2 years, she just turned 2 last week.
Hmm.
She's been the biggest joy in my life. I think she's the funniest dog ever known to man. She tricked me because she was black when I got her, and now she's white. And so I
Mm.
think God was
She's got a
kind of
little
playing a joke
diversity
on me
thing
with
going
that.
on. Is that what it is? She's like, I'll
Exactly,
show you
exactly.
diversity. I got one too. I have Casey J is my pandemic puppy, and she turned 2 in January. So I'm right
What
there
kind
with
of
you.
puppy is she?
She's a golden retriever and she's adorable and she
Oh,
knows it and she makes me
yeah,
crazy, but I love her. But I don't know how I would have gotten through the pandemic without a distraction like that, because
it's so
literally
true.
they're like one of the best things that God ever made. And I
I
honestly
agree.
think that it was like a gift from the Lord. So if I could just stop for 1 second on page 130, this is something that I actually did stop to read. And I'm glad the Lord helped me see this as I was flipping through. Maybe you are the one going through a dark season right now where you feel hopeless and alone. If you are, let me tell you about God's grace and the power of community. First, God is with you. His word says he is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit. That's from Psalm 34:18. You may not feel that he is there, but his presence is more than a fleeting feeling. Some things are true, whether you feel them or not. Second, he wants you to connect with others. Sometimes when you least want to be with people is when it's most important to do so. God did not create you to be alone. And then you reference this part in Genesis where God makes Eve and
Yeah,
says it is not good for the man to be alone. But it's not just a romantic thing,
yeah.
that it's about community. And that's why I think this book about Disa and Keisha and John and Kaya is so powerful, because you have these relationships that God has given you, and some of them have taken you to the peaks, and sometimes the same one takes you to the valley.
Yeah, absolutely. That's one of the biggest lessons that I think I've learned over the last few years is, anytime that I say, well, I don't need anybody, I can do it by myself, that's a big red flag, because God made us for community. I think anytime that we're trying to do it alone, I think that's just breeding ground for you to start believing lies and to just stay stuck in that place. But it's in coming out, it's in being with people. And, I'm an intro. Well, I say I'm an ambivert. There are times when I really want to be with people. There are times when I just want to be by myself.
Hmm.
And it's at those times when I realize I can't do that too much, because that's when I start to go into that dark place. So just realizing the power of community and how important it is, and how I really do believe that, when he says it's not good for man to be alone, like, I don't think he's just saying that in regards to marriage, because not everybody is going to be married. I'm 45 and it's not happened for me yet. And while I have hope that it will, I don't think that means that I need to put off community until I get the husband. Like, that's ridiculous. And so I
Right.
realize it's healthy for me to be with people, and that it's not just something that is going to fall into my lap. It really is something that I have to pursue. I have to make that a priority.
You had kind of, in the past few years, dipped your toe a little bit more into the worship
Yeah.
world, but there was never like a worship album or anything. Is that
Yeah.
something that you still would like to do?
Absolutely. We'd actually planned to do a live worship album recording, and this during pandemic has messed everything up. But I still want to do that. I've always had different worship songs on each of my albums, and then these last 2 years, that's all I've been releasing is worship singles. And so I thought I really want to do a live recording of a worship album. I don't know when it's going to happen at this point, but that is very much still on my wish list to be able to do eventually.
I can't wait. I would love that. I would love that more than anything. We do have your voice on this new song that we're playing by Jordan Feliz. How does something like that
Yeah.
come to be? I mean, I would have never, again, this is like, I wouldn't have guessed that you and Natalie Grant would have talked football. I would have never said, oh, yeah, there's going to be a single with Jordan Feliz and Mandisa dropping, and it's going to be a bop. I mean, that I didn't see coming.
I love that song. Yeah, Jordan, he's one of my favorite artists, first of all. I love his music. I love seeing him live. And he actually lives in my neighborhood. So I remember walking in my neighborhood one time. I was walking Kaya and I ran into him, and yeah, I invited him to my birthday party that year that was at my house. And I don't know, he's always somebody that I have respected. And so when he reached out and wanted me on this song, and then he put Jonathan Traylor, who is again,
Hmm.
I love him. His whole album is one of my favorites. And so when he talked about doing this song together, I jumped at it. And the producer that he worked with also lives down the street from me. This is what you get living in Franklin, Tennessee.
Right?
So yeah, I love being on it. I love the song. I love the original version of it, but then with the three of us, it's just so much fun. I love that song.
I just love talking to you because you'll just be like, yes, I was walking down the street. I saw Jordan Feliz. Like, it's no big deal. Like, I saw Steve, my neighbor, at the grocery store. And you'd be like,
I
okay.
mean, yeah, he's my neighbor.
You just have, I don't know if you realize the remarkableness of what you're living in. Like,
Right.
so I love that it sounds like right now you're in a peak.
I don't know, Teresa. I think I'm somewhere in the middle. I'm not at the lowest of lows, but I don't think I'm at a peak. I think I have been at a peak recently, but I don't know. I'm pretty steady right now. Talk to me in a couple of months, and that may be different. Maybe I ought to be at a peak then, but I'm average right now.
How do you know? And this is not necessarily like to pry into your emotional health, but just in general for people who are listening, how do we know when we maybe are coming off of a peak, and how do we know
Mhm.
that we're hitting a danger zone? And then what do we do about it? I mean,
Yeah,
valleys aren't necessarily bad. Staying in valleys for a really long time until you're
yeah,
not living life, that's bad.
yeah. I can only say for myself. I only recognize it in hindsight, but I think it is less important to recognize whether you're in a peak or valley or hill or valley, as Torrin Wells would say. I think about Elijah after he had defeated the prophets of Baal, on that mountaintop. And then the very next chapter, he's sitting by a tree and saying that he wants to die. I don't know how much time had passed in between them, but what is interesting to me is God was very much there with him on the mountaintop, and he was there with him in the valley. I think it's important to not lose yourself whether you're in a peak or a valley. I think what God is teaching me is I want to be there with you through it all. And if you try to disregard me when you're in the valley, you're going to stay there. And if you try to ignore me when you're in a peak, you're going to drop really quickly. And so I think I'm just trying to maintain my relationships regardless as to where I am, peak or valley. And I think that's the way to stay in a steady place. I think that's the best place to be. But the peaks feel really, really good.
Well, I don't live in your neighborhood, but I kind of wish I did, because then I would get to see you more often and we would have these kind of chats all the time. And then
Yeah,
you would know just how much I admire and respect and care about you.
I feel the same way. Whenever I
Aw.
see you on my list, you are a joy.
If you've enjoyed this episode of Terese Talk, be sure to subscribe and look for the next episode on Tuesday morning. If you really loved it, consider making a gift to Family Life, the ministry this podcast is a part of. Just go to familylife.org and find out more about what we do. Did you know that Family Life offers a variety of podcasts? From news to kids to faith, you'll find a favorite on demand at familylife.org. familylife.org.